Nick, one of the
Yeah,
most exciting and creative people I know. So thank you so much for being
that's all
episode
right.
2
No
on
worries.
this video series.
No worries.
Mate, tell us, what do you do on a daily basis? Who do you work with, and why do you do it?
So, I run a organisation called the Ideas Agency. We've been going for over a decade, and we work with B2B businesses to help them generate more revenue by extracting more projects from current clients or helping them convert new clients,
Okay.
basically. And we've been driving innovation among their clients and among their own organisations for that length of time. It's mad that it's 10, I don't know, it's more than 10
Yeah,
years. 'Cause
we've known each other for like 6 or 7 years.
yeah. So we started back in 2013 with a terrible laptop from my kitchen table.
Nice.
And now it's like grown.
Yeah.
We work with small businesses and absolute monster businesses in the B2B space. So.
And that's it. It's starting on a kitchen table, and it takes 10 years.
Yeah,
and like, no, you work with absolute monster brands. So tell us, name drop a few if you want to. Who do you work with, mate?
Well, so we work a lot with agencies acting as their innovation department, because often they'll have challenges from their brands that work with them, or they want to move into more of a strategic space with those brands. And so they don't have the people within their business that can really harness the power of innovation. And so we work with a lot of them. And through them, we've worked with brands like Pepsi, Danone, Cloetta, Red Bull, Rolls-Royce, BMW Mini, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, nice.
It goes on and on and on, helping them really solve challenges.
That's cool.
So it's always interesting because you get to work with so many different people and across so many different challenges. It's never any day that's the same. So I feel very lucky and privileged to be able to do it.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I get that as well. It's I think one of the things that I really remember our conversations like years ago.
Yeah.
Was like, it was like reframing and repurposing and like flipping and like, so it was like, I'd come to you as a video agency and I go, Nick, mate, I need to earn some more money. And you go, okay, but that's the wrong question. Is that right? Like you'd like...
Yeah, so I think innately, I've always understood that what people come to me with, because even as a kid, like at school, people come to me for advice. And I always understood that what they were telling me was the thing that they wanted, not the problem they wanted to solve. And then I didn't realise that I was doing that naturally. And it isn't because I'm a genius or anything. It was just innate to me. And so with brands or other businesses, when they come to the Ideas Agency and they say, right, our problem is we need more sales, I understand that that's the destination. It isn't the thing they're trying to solve.
Yeah.
And I always think that if you try and please the client by delivering that, the destination, often the outcome isn't as good as it would have been if you just spent some time investigating what the actual problem is that they're trying to solve.
And that's still current. You still do that for clients, or
you
still more innovation, more ideation, or is it more strategy? Or is it?
No, it's more strategy now. So for example, we work with a massive breadth of businesses. Working with a small business in Lydney that do mentoring at the moment and helping them really adjust their service proposition to a wider market. That's an interesting project. Just been doing stuff like that really.
Okay, so the main reason I got you here today is I thought you were the man for the job.
Right.
When I started 10 years ago, I was at uni. I loved film, always loved cameras, video. I knew I wanted to do this. And I left uni and I was like, right, I'm going to start my video agency. And that was it. That was all I had. I just, I could make films. They were great. I couldn't sell them. I couldn't earn money doing it. In my first year, I think I earned like £10,000 a year. And there's things now that I wish I knew 10 years ago. So that's my question is, if you were to start again, you started a creative agency again now, what's your first lesson you'd teach your younger self or your son or your daughter who's doing that, or this young person that's leaving uni?
Yeah, so the first thing I'd say is that a lot of people that might be watching this might have careers or be in jobs and whatever it is, and there's this thing around, you should really start a side hustle, and then from there you can safely leap into a business. Now you said you generated 10 grand or whatever, and you thought, like, that's good money for just, starting out.
Sure, yeah.
So I would say side hustles are okay, but then this comes from like Tony Robbins, if you want to take the island, you've got to burn the boats. And so I think you've got to leap.
Yeah, that's cool.
So when I was working, I was like, I just can't do it anymore because I was unhappy in my job. So I was like, right, okay, I'm just gonna jump. And at that time, a couple of years before working in the role that I was working in, that I left, I interviewed for an innovation agency and I didn't get in because I was too young.
Yeah.
That was the reason anyway. They told me I could have been terrible. That's the real reason. But yeah, and so I was like, I just want to do it myself. I want to understand how I can help businesses,
That's
create new ideas.
Yeah.
And so, the first thing I would say is you just got to jump and you've got to be comfortable with it, but understand it is terrifying and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I think side hustles slow you down. I genuinely believe
you got a safety net.
So I saved up money and then I was like, right, okay, I've got a tiny buffer that would last me like 4 or 5 months, and now I'm just going to go, and I went. It's a lot easier if you have someone else with you. It's even more terrifying if you do it by yourself.
Yeah.
But fact of the matter is, there'll always be other jobs you can go back to. Always.
Okay.
You can always go back and earn money doing something else that you dislike, but you might as well try at the thing that you love. There's a really interesting thing that, what's his name? The guy who did Ace Ventura, what's his name?
Oh my God! Yeah, don't put me on spot with names.
That dude.
Yeah, I know the guy.
Yeah,
facial expressions and.
Yeah. Why can't I remember his name? Anyway, he was saying that his dad was an accountant, and his dad was a brilliant musician and played in a band, but he became an accountant because he was like, it's relatively stable. I can earn money from it. He really disliked it. And he said his dad actually got fired from his job and became quite depressed. And the lesson that he took from it was, you can work at something you hate and still get fired from it. So you might as well do something you love.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
And also, when you're in that, if you are hating your job and you're at rock bottom, or whatever, there's only one way to go, and that's up. Like, it can only get better, can't it? Because you can always safety net revert back to like what you're doing.
I honestly believe the safety net slows you down. And for me, it took the fire at my back, so I had to make it work. And so I got my first client probably 5 months in, and it was 500 quid. And I got it from a network. I just met someone when I was networking. I went to a networking event, and that became the first project I ever did. And from that, I got recognised for something else, and that's how it all started.
That's really interesting, because that was good. And I said this last time, this was my first thing. I didn't know what networking was. I was sat in my bedroom with my laptop, and I was like, I want to make some films, some commercials, some corporates, some documentaries. I was like on the phone, picking it up, calling everyone, just random businesses out of the blue, just no strategy, just like scattergun. And and the reason it didn't work, and I did that every day. I'd get to 5 o'clock and think, fuck that, I've not done any sales. And I'd get up again, and the next day I'd do the same. And then you do that for a week, you're thinking, fuck. And then I met a mentor, and he was like, what are you doing for networking? And I was like, what's networking? And it was that, and I was like, oh shit. And that for me was the exponential change for me. As soon as I started actually getting out of my bedroom, going to Gloucester, going to Cheltenham, meeting people, having relationships with people, that you could start to see things happen. And so
you're right. So that I would say that's a secondary point, because you met someone who acted as a mentor, and I would say that's massively overlooked. People overlook the fact that because you're so connected now, you can reach anyone. And if I was offering advice to my son or daughter and they wanted to start a business, I would say find someone that's doing the thing that you want to do and ask them for help. I've never been rejected. And that sounds
it's
bizarre, but people want to help other people.
You want to help. It's flattering as well, right? If someone comes to you and says, "Can you help?" I'd never say no. It's
I have met the most incredible people in innovation, marketing, advertising, because I read their book and just reached out to them with no agenda. Just say, "I really liked your book. Can I come and chat to you for half an hour?" And they've always been and said yes. And these are like the rock stars of the creative world, and it's amazing, and they're always open. And I think because you've invested that time in them, they want to help you, and especially they see themselves in you.
100%.
And so you should always ask for help. And I think that's something that I learned, because even as a child, if you look at my school reports, I found my school report the other day actually, and it was terrible. Like if my son or daughter had it, oh my God, we got to speak to your teacher. But one of the things it said is Nick never asked for help. And so now at 42, I've started asking for help. I mean, dedicated help, as opposed to going to meet like, creative luminaries or whatever, just to get some advice.
Yeah.
And so
no, 100%. I think that's again, it's like you can copy, you can be friends, you can pick up things from everybody as long as you're open to it. Anybody can teach you stuff.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd say is that to anyone starting out, don't be afraid to build really tall, high walls and push people off it. And what I mean by that is don't try and appeal to everyone. You want to appeal to your audience or the thing you're doing. You want to appeal to a specific group, because it makes everything easier. Like marketing, positioning, all that kind of stuff. It makes it really easy. And I got taught that by a chap called John Hegarty, who's in advertising. He's a legend. If you read any of his books, he's a legend. And he was saying, you want to push people off the wall. You don't want everyone. And he actually said to me, you should change the name of your business. And I was like, why?
Yeah.
He goes, because it just, it doesn't really sound, you're in the innovation game. Like everyone needs to innovate. If they don't, they die. So he was like, you should call your business Do or Die. And he came up with it in about 30 seconds.
It's good.
And I was like, oh, it's really good.
Yeah.
So eventually the Ideas Agency might become Do or Die. So I trademarked it anyway, just in case. So I do.
No, that's it. I think that's cool. Okay, so further question. I think overlooked is a lot of luck and timing with businesses, right? I think for myself, I was interested in video at a time where video was on the up. Even though when I started, photography was the go-to. You go and you get a photographer, and if you've got leftover budget, you make it like a promotional video, and social media wasn't even a thing.
Yeah.
Whereas like I've followed that trajectory of like up. So do you think there's an element of luck and timing as well as like skill involved? And like, is that
massively? Luck is the thing that everyone realizes or knows, that have been in business for ages, know that they've had. Like you can't account for it.
Yeah.
But it plays a massive role in businesses. Who you meet and suddenly you bring them in as a business partner, and they've got connections to people, their mates, who now become leaders in other businesses, and as a result of that you get more business, and then they know somebody else who's got a business that wants to invest in business, and suddenly you get money and scale and blah, 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 and it all starts from you going to a business meeting up in Manchester and meeting some random person that then comes into your business. Luck plays.
That's it. I just think it's overlooked. I see on socials, and it's that you can build a business in 2 months and you'll be earning X, and it's like, well, you can, but you'd be fucking extremely lucky to do that. But from my experience, it was luck that I met a mentor. It was luck that I got a few clients who liked my work and I did a good job, and I didn't delete everything and mess it up. And then it's luck that grows and they tell people, and it's luck that video is on the up. But do you reckon you can create your own luck as well?
There's that saying, isn't it? It's like, the harder I work, the luckier I get. I think you can create your own luck.
I reckon you can. I reckon that saying's pretty apt. It's like, if you're putting yourself in the right places.
But it's not the right place. You don't know.
You have no idea. That's the thing.
It's just, if you're doing stuff, chances are other stuff will happen.
Yeah.
And that's the fundamental equation. Like you mentioned networking at the beginning. Yeah, that's one element, but it could be you go and buy a book at the train station and read that book, and then contact the author of that book, and suddenly something else grows from you investing £6 in a book, and your time.
Yeah.
And so luck does play a role, but I don't think it's. Yeah, I don't know. It 100% plays a massive role in business, but it's really difficult to quantify because it is so like nebulous. Do you know what I mean? It's just all this stuff going on, and you're like, oh, that was lucky that I went and did that, or I was ill that day and I had to go and get
Yeah.
medication or whatever.
I don't know.
medicine.
I think that you kind of can create your own luck, just from what I've experienced. And I remember this. You may have forgotten this, but I don't know where we were driving back from somewhere, years ago, pre-COVID. It's got to be. Oh, I mean, definitely was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And you told me a story about how you'd written down in a book,
Yeah.
your dream house.
Yeah.
Right. It was, I forget, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but it was like how much it cost, where it was, the amount of bedrooms. It was like the dream house, right?
Yeah. I'll tell you. So that story comes from, again, me, through whatever reason, reaching out to somebody who was in the innovation field, and they ran a really successful business, but they hadn't always run a successful business. They'd ran a business which had been doing very little revenue. And he said to me, the point when I decided it was going to change was when I was walking with my friends on a hill and it was tipping down and I couldn't afford a raincoat. And he came home and he was like, I just can't do this anymore. Like, I have to change the business. And he introduced me to Tony Robbins, which I didn't even know who he was. And Tony Robbins teaches you about almost like manifestation, but with pragmatic steps towards it. And so I took one of these things on board, which is just the act of writing something down sets it as something more solid then, like, oh, I'd really like a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I wrote down exactly what I wanted because we were trying to get a house at the time, and it was like, oh, I want, 4 bedrooms, I want it to overlook fields, I want double garage. And at the end, I put like the price, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I closed the book and left it on the shelf, and my wife actually found this house round the corner from where her granddad lived, and was like, I found this house. It's amazing. You should come and look at it. And I went and looked at it. I was like, it's awful. I don't want this house. And we eventually we did get it and we remodeled it and stuff. But what was interesting was I found the book and I looked back at the book and it has got a double garage and 4 bedrooms and it overlooks fields. Like the view from our house is just hills,
Yeah. Amazing. No, mate, you told me that and I can't remember whether I did this because of that story or whether the two just coincided later down the line. But I had a black book. I remember working in this like tiny basement office and it was just me. And I wrote down yearly turnover 200K. And in my head, as I was writing it, I was thinking, this is ridiculous. Like and I was literally on the early stages of my business. I was like, this is stupid. Like, why am I even writing it down? I wrote it down. And then like a few days went past and and I was just like, okay, so how would I actually do that? Like how many commercials, how many corporate videos would it take? And you write it down and you're like, oh, actually, do you know what? That wouldn't actually be too far-fetched. Close the book, forget about it. It wasn't any, there was no like KPIs or anything involved.
Yeah.
Look back and then sure enough, you've hit it.
Yeah.
And I just wonder whether like you said, right, at the act of like actually writing something down, reverse engineering it, and then just you have those actionable steps. And it's not like manifestation of just like, you can't just think about something and it's going to happen. But having something in your mind and then acting on it, I think that's good. I think that's the way. I think I would tell myself to do the book again, like 100%. I should do the book now, but for
it's really interesting. There's something called, and I know this because I've read about it, but your reticulatory activating system.
Wow.
And what it is let's say for example you want a new car. Suddenly you see that car everywhere on the road.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing by writing it down. Your mind's like, oh, you'll start to see more opportunities. And then that's where luck comes in, like, oh, I've managed to meet this person, but and whether it's because you've written it down and it's in your mind, I don't know the argument.
I think it's true. I think once you get on, there's a feedback loop in your brain and you just go into it. So I would say write your goals down. They may or may not happen, but if you just be crazy with that goal. At the time, I was like, I'm never going to hit that. And then 5 years later, and it's like, well, easy. I think it's good. I think my next question is like around creativity. Can you teach creativity? And that is a big question. What's your kind of like gut instinct? Can you be taught to be creative?
So I get asked this quite a lot. And my instinctive response is, like, when you were a kid, you were creative. All children are. And, like you're instinctively innately creative or whatever. But I think as you get older, a lot of that gets beaten out of you by like school or your career and that kind of stuff. And you end up saying, oh, I'm not creative because I can't draw, is one of the usual things that I get told, oh, because I can't draw. And I'm like, yeah, but you all breathe. And Wim Hof teaches you to breathe, and suddenly you can overcome illness because you're doing his breathing techniques. And so you can apply creative techniques. And that's what we do in some of our workshops. Like we'll work with teams and we'll take them through a structured creative process that enables them to think of a good idea to solve their business challenge or whatever it may be. And, you know, that's okay. I think there is something innately within us that if you've always been good at solving problems, that will come to the fore. Like you don't necessarily need the structured creative techniques. So fundamentally, I do believe everyone's creative, but I also believe that creative people, I think anyway, have a need to get approval from others. Like I did it. So the reason why I was creative was because my mum was ill when she was younger. And so I would think of stuff to help make her life easier. But the thing that I loved was the fact that she would say, oh, Nick, that's a brilliant idea. Well, that's a great thing that you've invented. And like she really encouraged it. And so like that dopamine, every time someone said that's a great idea, I always wanted to come up with great ideas to get it back. And it didn't matter. As I was going through life, I was like, I'd always try and come up with ideas or always try and do stuff to solve other people's problems because I got a massive reward from that. And the massive reward is someone saying, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm brilliant.
Yeah,
and so that's why I
trains
think
you.
I do think there's something to do with that.
No, that's interesting. And I guess, but because you've done workshops that I've filmed and I've been in that have exercises that kind of make you feel more creative.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's even like I said, the act of reversing. So it's like I remember you told me think of the worst idea possible. So I want to make a film for Nike running shoes. Okay, so what is the worst idea?
Yeah, the worst idea would be like you know, let's make everyone run through custard or whatever, you know, and don't even film the shoe.
And
just have like, so you're like, oh, make everyone run through custard, don't film the shoe, but you've got or like treacle, and you've got someone miles ahead of everyone else.
Yeah.
And it's like suddenly the person running in the lead is wearing the shoe, right? And then you can do some like, I don't know, some terrible tagline about, you know, don't run in treacle like everyone else.
Yeah. But even that gets you thinking to a group, and that just sparks conversation. And I like that. To me, that's creative, right? That's creativity is just reworking and remolding and
and like, I developed an AI avatar recently that I'm going to release, but that does exactly the same thing. So it just has frameworks, because if you ask GPT or whatever, come up with some great ideas for my like shoe shop to sell more shoes, it will give you surface level stuff. But actually, once you give it an innovation framework to follow, the ideas are astounding. Like I ran it, and what it does is it reframes your challenge like we just spoke about, but then it will go out to other sectors and it will list like 10 sectors, pick 10 random sectors, and you do. And it says, right, which ones do you want? You say, I don't know, like bars and cabinet making. And then it takes inspiration from those industries and produces that kind of stuff. So it would say, oh, do you know what we should do? If you want to sell more shoes, we should hold a shoe and sip night where it's like a cocktail evening in your store. I was like, that's really good. Like as a prompt to create more creative ideas. It's amazing. AI is incredible.
Yeah, that was one of my questions with you, was going to be like, what are your thoughts on AI and creativity? Because traditionally it's like AI is not creative. AI, you know, it can do. I love the conversation I had last time with Sam was amazing. He was like, I want AI to do the laundry and do the dishes and not do the stuff that I enjoy doing. And I was like, that's literally it, right?
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think creativity is in danger of AI?
No, I don't. I think AI doesn't have intuition yet. And so would it suggest an ad where runners are running through treacle? Probably not.
Yeah.
It would do something which is derivative of the stuff that it's seen before.
It's the median of what's happened before, right?
Yeah. So I just see it. It's just an engine. It's just another engine. Like Photoshop is an engine, you know, and you could say the same about farming. Like, were farmers really pissed off when tractors were invented? Probably people that sold ox they were pretty annoyed, you know. But I just think it is what's coming, what's happening, and it's going so quickly.
Yeah.
I just think you need to use it as an asset. Like,
no, that's cool. Yeah.
Don't just be like, no. The way we've always done stuff, that's where we're gonna stay because we're familiar with it. I'm telling you, the people that aren't familiar with it and are okay with being uncomfortable and discovering stuff, like the people in those businesses are the ones that are going to absolutely fly because you're like, no, because what we sell is oxen, so we're just going to continue selling oxen.
Yeah. No, you've got to evolve. So this avatar. So like, I mean, it's probably too early to say, but like, what's the like? Could I use it? Can I go on it and type? Can I like?
Not yet.
No.
But I have got.
What's the goal though?
You'll go to the jam.ai because my thing is typically, you know, the ideas agency works with businesses doing about 5 million plus turnover. And that's okay, but there is a limited amount of those types of businesses. So I wanted to be able to give businesses for about 25 quid an opportunity to sample innovation techniques and really help them. And so I was like, it's great working with the bigger businesses, but you know, I can now work with 100,000 smaller businesses for £25 and they can create an amazing idea with their teams because they are being led through a structured process. And it takes about 10 minutes as well. So you've like massively reduced the time. So that was the idea for it. It's going to be called the jam.ai.
Amazing.
And
so you don't see it as sort of like undercutting your own services. It's just an evolution.
No, I don't, because let's say, for example, someone uses the jam and then they're like, this is an amazing idea. Great, you've got an idea. And then what happens?
Yeah. How do you do it?
Well, how are we going to make this happen? And then you go to the ideas agency and go, right, we've got this idea. We want to make it happen.
That's cool.
And so that was my reasoning for doing it. And again, because I don't want to be selling ox, like I want to be moving with everyone else, you know. So that's why.
I think in the video game, it's just it's doing the dishes and it's doing the laundry and it's making editing quicker. This podcast can be edited with AI and it will use the 3 cameras data and it will do it really quickly. Whereas that would take a human, a day to do. Whereas now it's an editor's, a couple of hours, which is, amazing. It's speeding things up. I just think like did you see the Coca-Cola advert, the Christmas one?
I haven't seen it, no.
So they've just done it with AI generated CGI.
Right.
And it's like, I don't know, I'm just like, what? Like, I just don't understand why you would do that. Like, you have a beautiful Christmas advert, there's nostalgia and, it makes you feel something already. Like, you just don't need to. I don't think AI needs to be pushed into every avenue. I don't know. And like equally, like the, do you see the Jaguar?
Yeah.
So like, again, it's like, from my head, from the outside, I'm just like, I just don't see the strategy behind that.
I think that's the thing is, like, obviously I've seen a massive uproar on LinkedIn about it.
Yeah.
Like, this is awful, rah. And like, okay, cool, but you don't know the context of the brief that went to the creative agency. You don't know the strategy behind the business. Like, all you're seeing is the output and going, I don't like that because it doesn't, it's not what I remember Jaguar as, which is like, in my head anyway, old men, execs driving these cars. But
maybe they want to get away from that. Maybe they've done exactly what we did with the treacle and the shoes,
exactly,
gone, what's the worst thing we could do for this brand?
Yeah, it's far
create yellow and pink and flamboyant and like
exactly. It's far braver to do that. I'm sure there's like going to be marketing people watching this going, "Oh, it's a load of shit. Like, why have they done that?" But honestly, I think it's far braver for them to have done this and try to move somewhere that the brand isn't. Because actually, those old men are dying. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, you're
continually appeal to people who like smoking jackets and all that kind of stuff. No, you can't. You've got to move forward. Like that's the thing. You don't want to keep selling the ox. Like, go and do something different. And fair play to them, because it's
a bold move.
A real bold move. Time will tell if they've been right about that.
I think you're right, mate. I think it's interesting. I think it's it's
far easier to play safe. It's far easier. No one sticks their neck out. It's like when I used to work for a really famous agency, I remember advertising agency, and one of the things they said was, no one's going to get fired for hiring us. No marketing director will get fired for hiring us.
Yeah.
But the result of that is you can get work which is derivative of other stuff, and it doesn't massively move you forward. So when all the hot houses came in, I'm talking young, startup, vibrant agencies, a couple of brands that started to move away from the big network agencies and select those started getting work that was really really powerful.
Yeah.
But you got to make the choice to stick your neck out and go, do you know what, we're gonna go for it. So that's interesting. I admire the team at Jaguar for doing it.
And I guess I just, video's in a different time. Video has become a necessity. Social media, everybody creates video. I heard a quote the other day. It was like, there's more video agencies in the UK on Companies House than there are petrol stations.
Yeah.
Which is kind of terrifying for me. I'm thinking, holy shit, like, you have to do something different. You have to be better, different. If you were in my position now, like, what would you be doing to keep ahead of the curve? To spice things up?
I would say, firstly, I don't think there is many video production agencies that have trend watchers or people just dedicated to seeing what the space is doing. So I was listening to Vaynerchuk recently, and he was saying about this idea of social selling. So at the moment, you've got like eBay and Facebook Marketplace and stuff like that. So people go on there, sell whatever, and that's the thing. There's apps coming out like Whatnot and a couple of others where you can live stream. So if I was selling like this phone, you live stream it, give demos, you give a demo. It's almost like QVC on Macs, right? And so you can see the thing working. So it's moving from still images to people selling, right?
Yeah.
And they're used to doing that because of Instagram Reels and all that kind of stuff. So fine. He was saying that the evolution of that is retailers where brick and mortar stores, which are dead from Monday to Friday, they have studios in store and they sell stuff. So you imagine, I was talking to my wife about it. She was like, "Oh, I'd definitely buy stuff from Marks and Spencer's if I could see the model doing, wearing the clothes." And it's live streaming video. And I agree with him. I think that's where it's going. So if I was you, I'd be like, right, how can I help brands set up studio, do the production, the live streaming, help them with that. That's where I go.
Yeah, it's tough. And I think I'm like mentally ready, but because I trained in a filmmaker, because I trained to be like this artist, it was like you were making a documentary film, and it was an art school essentially. Like, there's just a massive disconnect between doing that, which is art, and then just creating a business, which is valuable, right?
Well, I got told by a guy called David Mansfield, who used to be CEO at Capital Radio. Firstly, it depends on what you want. And I know that's like an obvious question, but, he was saying that never build a business to sell.
Right.
Don't ever build a business to sell, because he's seen loads of people forego like family holidays, kids' sports days, and not sell their business. He said, just build a good business because there'll always be a buyer for a good business.
Okay.
And so build it, but not with the objective of
getting out.
I'm going to get out and sell it. Because I think it actually hinders you and your progress.
You could lose the passion, can't you?
Yeah, you massively lose the passion, because suddenly it becomes about numbers and not the reason you got into it at the beginning. And I think, you can still do the art stuff. You can still do that, the art direction and, all the stuff that you're passionate about. But I also think that if you can offer something that other businesses aren't, other film production companies aren't, like we're the experts in retail, we help you sell your product through film via like social selling. And through your like staff that stood around in your store doing absolutely nothing, you just get them on camera presenting your product to sell digitally.
I love it. I think that is, interestingly, that came up in conversation the other day. It is this like, video is easy, right? We have an iPhone. Everybody has an iPhone. The tools are there. The sound production in an iPhone is studio quality now, near enough. So anyone has these tools. It's just learning how to do it. And it's the human element, which is the bottleneck at the moment. It's like, how can I present on camera?
Yeah,
How
yeah,
can I
exactly.
write a script that's any good? How can I like do this without people getting bored, or like what are the coming
Yeah,
trends?
because it sounds great. It sounds easy, but they're going to need help.
It's like, try it. Yeah, you get an iPhone and shoot something.
Yeah,
It'll be shit. The first 20 times you do it, it'll be shit.
They'll need space set up properly. They'll need the lighting. They'll need to make their products look good. They'll need to understand the structure of the content. So there's a massive thing behind that as well that needs advice from people like you.
Yeah, I think it could be interesting, and it's definitely something I'm gonna look into. But yeah, it's just different from what I trained to do, and I think that's taken me like literally 9-10 years to accept. Is like, you are not a filmmaker. Like, if you want to run a business, you need to be both. You need to be passionate in it, but also it needs to be a business as well. And you need to enjoy doing it day in, day out.
I always look at, you should always look at the unobvious stuff. So traditionally I might say, well, you need a new business person to be able to get new business with sales. But actually, I think, as we've said, if you had someone just looking at trends, or you employ an agency that looks at trends, and then you can use that to generate content and develop services, is a far more interesting proposition to what everyone else is doing, which is like, hello, can I help you with something? No. Hello, can I help you? No. Hello.
I think it's good. I think you're right. Okay, interesting one. What's your most memorable or favorite book? What's the book you give to most people?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of reading about everything other than the thing that you're doing.
Right. Okay.
And there's a book I was recommended by a chap called Dan Kowalski, who his business is around decision making, so he helps organizations make better decisions. Okay. Interestingly, it's not a book about decisions.
Yeah.
But it's a book called Fluke, and I've forgotten the author now. He's English, but it's amazing.
Crass?
Yeah, Crass, right? Oh, what's his first name? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, it's an amazing book. And the reason why it's an amazing book is because it's just got great stories in it.
Okay.
So the thing, to your point about luck, and the reason we do things as individuals is because of our belief systems. And he talks a little bit about belief systems, and actually there is that a little bit about decision making. But one of the things that one of the stories was around the Romans had this Roman numeral system, right? MC, MX. The reason they had that was because it made it very difficult to forge documents with a quill. So, for example, if you were selling me, or you were buying land from me or whatever, and it was 17 hectares, it's really difficult to try and forge that MXC.
Yeah.
Whereas they didn't go on to the Arabic numeral system, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the one we do today, because a 1 can be made to look like a 7 with just a stroke of a quill.
Right.
So they did that.
Yeah.
Obviously, that had consequences in terms of they couldn't work out stuff like probability. So they used to go to oracles to be like, right, what did the gods say about this war or whatever, this battle they're going into? They couldn't work out probability. And it was only when the Chinese invented printing, block printing, that they then could print agreements, as in block print an agreement. And so that removed the forgery stuff, because a quill mark on a 7 would look obvious if something was printed. And so then that allowed us to move, I would say, as a civilization, into like probability and maths, and the world just unlocked. But it was because of the fact that the Romans didn't trust people. And they wanted to, make sure that people couldn't do them over.
That's cool. Interesting recommend. So loads of other stories in there.
There's loads of amazing stories in there.
Do you use stuff like that? Like, does that come back in your creative work and your business?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I really love telling people stories. So a lot of the work that I do is working with teams and illustrating the reason why we're doing something, and then illustrate it with a story. Like innovation, there's loads of stuff about how people have innovated and lost their markets because of it. Like, there's one around ice cutters, and the story goes that back in the 1900s, 5 million tons of ice was shipped from the Great Lakes of Northern Europe and America around the world, and that would go into ice houses. Like big houses used to have these things called ice houses, right? Basically to keep foods chilled and make puddings and whatever else. And then, so the people that would cut the ice, their idea of innovation was, well, we'll get a bigger saw or we'll get a bigger sleigh to transport the ice to the ships and stuff.
Right, yeah.
And then 20 years later, so 1920s, we learned as a race that we could centrally freeze water. So so in the space of 20 years, there's no more ice cutters left because we could create factories that produced ice and just locate them next to the, you could locate them in New York where it's hot. Anyway, and then 10 years after that, there were no more ice factories because we'd invented the fridge. And so I think it's a really powerful lesson in, again, going back to our farmer analogy of like the tractors are coming. So you might as well gear your business up to use the tractors as opposed to just selling ox 100%. To plough fields.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. Okay, mate, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, that's all right.
Let's recap. So if you're 21 now, you're sat at home, you do graphic design, web design, something creative, film photography. What's your what would you tell them to do next week? They got no clients. What are they going to do next week?
You've got no clients, but you need to understand how to get clients. Go and find someone in the industry that, or you aspire to be like. They can have a business that's doing well. Go and ask them because you might as well
start a
template it.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? That's probably like the first thing that I would tell them to do. Read books, reach out to people. You're so connected now.
Yeah. And it's also so easy, right? You can literally go, okay, so who's the best video production company? Oh, who's the director of that? Go on LinkedIn, literally connect, because everyone just accepts it anyway. Message.
And then like jump. Don't do side hustle stuff where you're doing it, piecemeal. Just jump and like dedicate yourself to like, I'm going to go and make it work. And if I don't make it work, then at least I've given it my absolute best.
Nice.
And so that's the next
And write it down. Get your little black book, write it down.
Yeah, get your little
this time next year, I'm going to work with this kind of client, doing this kind of film. It's going to cost me this much and I'm going to earn this much. That'll be my ad.
And just give it a go. I think there's so many people who've got great ideas for businesses that every day sit there and think about those businesses or will say, oh, that's a really good idea. I should really do that. And it stays in the, I should really do that category.
Yeah.
Like, just
that's the other thing you said to me was like, I think it was you. It was like, you've got like, ideas are cheap. You have everyone has loads of ideas. But if you write them down, you had an ideas shelf or something like that?
I had this, like, me and my old business partner, we used to have loads of ideas that we just used to keep on a centralized document. We had loads and loads of them.
But that's awesome. So I think, I don't know who it was, but someone said, put them on a shelf, and then the ones that you can't stop thinking about, get those ones back out. If you left it for 24 months and you're still thinking about this idea, like I've got this idea and it's kind of been done, and I would love to see it in the world. So if anyone watches this and knows how to code a social media type app, so it's called Plus One, and I see a lot of isolation, working from home, post-COVID isolation, and I think the key to that is finding your own tribe. Right? I think humans are a lot happier when they've got people that are always going to be there. Don't have to do anything for them, just got to be there, surround them. And mine was mountain biking. So as soon as I lived in Forest of Dean, mountain biking is a big thing. As soon as I found a group that I knew was there, I could chat to about anything, it could be bikes, it could be whatever. It was just like another layer of like that mental health safety net. But the thing is, for me as an introvert, it's very hard to go and ring up and join a group. Just turn up to a group
of course,
I don't know, did MMA for one lesson in Manchester, and it was terrifying. You walk in and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to get beaten up by all these blokes, and it's like ridiculous. But if there was an app whereby I could have a mountain biking group and I could open it up on Plus One, so there's a Plus One spot, I could put it on this app and say, look, if you're free, if you're on your own, come along. We'll welcome you with open arms, and we'll like introduce you. We'll buy you a pint at the end. And
it's a great idea.
I think it's an amazing idea, and I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it in the world, but
so how could you? What's the next thing you could do with it?
Yeah, I mean, I always just reach the final bottleneck of like, well, I need an app, I need a thing, like I need that, like, because and it's social media. At the end of the day, it's a social media platform, so you need user base.
I'll tell you what you. So this
tell me what to do.
This goes back to like prototyping, because everyone does what you're thinking in terms of, I need to get to the end thing.
Yeah.
Right. So I need this app.
Yeah.
But you don't. what you need to do is work out a test that will allow you to test whether or not it's a good idea, because that's far better than like keeping it on the shelf for 24 months.
Yeah. It might be shit. No, it might be. I'm the only one in the world that does it.
So you might say, right, I'll put something on Facebook, and if I get 2 respondees or 5 respondees, whatever the target is for you to go. Let's say, for example, you got 30 responses. You'd be like, right, okay, that's like a pretty powerful response.
I'll use this as a test. If you watch this and you think that's a good idea,
so that's what I'm talking about. Is that you need to work out the test. And once you've done that, you're like, oh my god, 30, 40, 100, 200 people responded to it. That's a nice indicator, because then you can go with, right, okay, I might invest a little bit of money in there, because what you're talking about is, I need an app, and in your head it's like, I'm gonna have to, it's gonna cost loads of money, and then what if the idea is no good? I will have just burnt loads of money, which otherwise I could be investing in my business. But actually, if you said, I've done 5 tests, and each of them has brought in like 1,000 people have been like, I'll join.
And also, like, thinking in that way, you can probably just do it on an Excel spreadsheet. You
You
can probably just go, okay, so these 100 people are interested. These 100 people have groups that have opened it up on +1 spreadsheet. I'll just connect a few dots, and it can just kind of grow like that. Like, you don't, you're right. Like, the end goal is kind of, it's blinding, isn't it? It's too far. You see like a Facebook or a Twitter, and it's like, I'm never going to compete with
very few people do that prototyping thing. And like a load, if you go on, you watch LinkedIn and stuff, lots of people talk about prototyping. There's a business that we've invested in called Panalytics, and it's for B2B businesses, but it gets insight from your non-customers. And so I'm a massive fan of nototyping. I created that word. I think I created it myself, but I probably haven't. Which is like, what's the thing you can do before creating the product or service? And so that's what I would do, is just look at the data. Anyway, so Panalytics gets you the data basically to say, do you know what, this idea is actually quite good. It will resonate with your non-customers.
Wow.
As opposed to it not.
Mate, your ideas shelf must be absolutely overflowing.
But a lot of it is to do with certainty. Like if I could tell you now that idea +1, it will generate you 5 million quid, you'd be all in on it. You'd be like, well, sweet. But also, if I could tell you that it will absolutely bomb and won't generate you any money, but you've done, you've invested a tiny amount of money in testing it, that's also a good outcome, because you're like, I can put it to bed. It doesn't have to stay in my head anymore.
No, cool. Oh, mate, thanks so much for your time.
You're welcome.
It's been really insightful.
All right, cool.
Nice one.
Cheers.
I fumbled it. Sweet.
Right,
nice one, bro. Thank you.